Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson, and today's show is the kickoff of a new series. This series is Management Magicians. And the whole idea here is that we have some astounding, stupendous, fantastic, creative, imaginative managers around the world, and what they do in their daily activities, serving their organizations and their communities, it's really magic. And so we've coined the series the Management Magicians because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about sort of somebody who has the title manager, supervisor, and they're not really, doing anything with it. They're not engaged. They're not passionate. They're not focused on outcomes. They're not really doing anything other than just sort of existing in that area, in that space, in that title. So what we're doing is focusing on those who are provided opportunities and they take a management, supervisory situation and they really do work magic. They work magic and they use their special skills and they use their talents and they create outcomes that are exceptional. They are surpassing their individual goals. They often are surpassing the goals of the organization. And they're also, by uplifting their professional units, they're also uplifting those individuals. And a lot of times there's a wonderful ripple effect out into the lives of the people that they manage, that the positive benefits at work and sort of the results. People start to feel better about themselves. People understand what their purpose is. People are provided feedback. It starts to ripple into their home lives. And so, again, look at what our management magicians are able to do. So that's what we're focusing on in this series. And so what we're doing is highlighting some of the things that management magicians are doing all over the world in different types of organizations to, again, have incredible outcomes. And those outcomes might be financially based. They might be in terms of just engagement, in terms of retention. And we always want to remember that one of the foundations of everything that we do, all the programs, all the different resources, is the concept of practicing the joyful art of business. And that, of course, would apply here. Our management magicians are joyful. Now, they're not all the same personality. So some people are joyful and literally they're just sort of, if you were to meet them, they're smiling and they have, just sort of an energy that emanates off of them because their joy is just, they can share it with the world through sort of the physical manifestation in their expressions. There are other people whose personality doesn't permit the same type of expression of the joy, but internally they're content and they are in a place psychologically, emotionally, that when they are going into work, it is a positive experience. So joy doesn't necessarily appear the same in different individuals because we're all different people. But the base measurement is, how does that person feel about going to work? So if somebody is getting fantastic financial returns, if their numbers in terms of their organizational unit are awesome, but that individual manager is having headaches and stomach aches, they're dreading, work when they're heading into work, then they're not joyful. And so, again, because we take this holistic approach, looking at your complete return on your investment in your professional endeavors, it's not sufficient that, quote, your numbers are excellent. What is sufficient for our program, again, surpassing your goals, do you have a personal sense of joy? Are you content? If you're dreading going to the job, if you can't wait to leave, then you're not joyful, and then it's time for a change. So we're looking at people who are management magicians, right? They're getting amazing things done. They're using their magic, but they're also adhering to our larger scope of they're practicing their own joyful art of business in their own lives. So they're enjoying what they're doing. There's some level of contentment. They might not be ecstatically happy about it, but if they're not miserable about it, if they're not dreading it, there's a level of contentment, and that is something that sadly is in a minority of people around the world. So some level of contentment, we're going to use that as a qualifier for joy. And we just want to remember that you're not a management magician if everyone else thinks you're great, right? Your numbers are great. Wow, you're doing so wonderful, but you are really unhappy and miserable. Then you're not a management magician. You've tricked other people, right? Right? But that's not what an elite level magician does. An elite level magician, or as most people who do this professionally are called illusionists. An illusionist does exactly that. They create an illusion, but they also themselves are a conduit for that experience, that ability to take an audience away from their everyday lives and sort of literally transport them into some other arena where they feel these fantastic emotions. That's what an illusionist does. I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada, where you have some of the world's greatest illusionists that work here. It's fantastic. And it's a skill. And so you don't want your elite performer to have a lack of congruence between what they provide for audiences and their own lives. We don't want that situation where someone is able to deliver, again, amazing results, but internally, they're miserable, they're unhappy, they're not at all healthy emotionally and psychologically. That's not where we want to be. So again, holistic approach, management magicians, they exist. I have been privileged and had the wonderful opportunity to travel all over the world for the last 14 years, going to different organizations and conducting corporate training and consulting services on site. So I've met, seen, worked with some just fantastically talented management magicians, and they are out there, and they are in every corner of the globe, and they are in every different sector. I've seen them in food service. I've seen them in entertainment firms. I've seen them in amusement parks. I've seen them in retail stores. It's just you name a sector, they're there. Education, healthcare, just everywhere. And I don't know if they get enough recognition, and I don't know if we do enough as an industry, just sort of in business in general, whether business education, where I spend a lot of my time, and I've been so fortunate, again, teaching business students in undergrad in the past and graduate MBA programs for the past about 8 years with the University of Maryland, University College. I'm in their MBA program, so I'm every day working on material for my students, and I'm not sure if in either business education or in practical applied business and consulting, corporate training in these areas, in law firms and all these different professional services, are we giving people the tools they need to be management magicians? Are we helping them understand it's not enough to just sort of meet your numbers or exceed your numbers? It's got to be a return on investment on how you feel. Again, that back to your joyful art of business. I don't know. And so that's one of the reasons that we've launched this series. So our specific topic for this show today is, of course, management magicians never promote the best performer. Here's why. Never promote the best performer. Here's why. And so I know a lot of you are thinking either I am a management magician and I just want to get, better, raise my skill level, or some of you are thinking I aspire to be a management magician. So what on earth are you talking about? Don't promote my best performer. That's silly. Okay. As many of you know that have been part of our other programs or resources, I'm always focused on being pragmatic. That's what will work in the world as it is. I'm a problem solver, right? We want to make things better, and I'm incredibly passionate because I'm excited. I love what I do. I've loved it and had so much fun. So when we look at these shows and when we looked at picking this episode, the reason that I went with this topic, never promote the best performer, here's why, is because I think this is something that a lot of people who are not either high-level management magicians or who haven't even entered management yet, I think that people don't understand the power, and that's why we're doing it, right? These are powerful, magical tools and techniques, and it might seem on the surface of it sort of, that what? Duh. I know how to promote people. But apparently in application in real life, we don't fully understand the power. So let's explore this. So I'm a manager. That means I have some sort of supervisory power or authority. It doesn't matter particularly what my title is, right? Whether I'm senior leader or assistant shift supervisor or whatever. That's not the point. The point is I have some responsibility for getting my own work done and for corralling other people and or resources to get work done. That's kind of big picture. And so managers often will have the opportunity to have either direct decision-making over promotions, or at least they're going to have some input on a promotion. So you're looking at a promotion, and I think one of the things when we look at our topic of never promote the best performer, here's why, is we need to think just for a minute and step back. What's the purpose of a promotion? Really, what is it? I think generically we'll think if we're on the receiving end of a promotion, well, I'll get potentially more money, I would hope. Maybe I'll get an increase in some sort of benefit. Maybe I'll achieve some sort of additional accolade or some sort of recognition with a new title. And those things are typically what comes with it, but they're not the purpose of it. You know, the purpose of it is this. We always are trying to get things done. We're focused on outcomes. The purpose of the organization is outcome. Depending on if it's a public firm, meaning a government entity, or it's a private sector organization, meaning it's not a governmental entity. It could be a private sector entity that has public shareholders, which would open up different levels of scrutiny and different levels of transparency. But the bottom line for all of these organizations is that you have to get stuff done. I mean, that's it. So, you know, again, it tends to be if it's a private sector entity that has public shareholders, they tend to focus on their return shareholder value, which is good. That's important. But that's basically just another metric for getting stuff done, right? I need to get stuff done. So if I'm a government agency and I'm in charge of some area of transportation and I'm dealing with the railroads, then I need to get stuff done, specifically dealing with the railroads and whatever my area is of responsibility. If I'm a private sector firm that is focused on profits or earnings, then I'm focused on that. But it's all getting stuff done. I need to get stuff done. That's like the core basic issue. So I need, at some level, some people to help me get stuff done. And the people that I'm going to move into managers are going to be the people that, again, are able to get stuff done on their own, right? They're sort of self-directed. They're able to handle their own time management, organization, and get stuff done. And then they're also able to corral other resources, other people. It could be internal staff. It could be vendors or contractors. It doesn't really matter. But they're able to take other resources out external to themselves and get stuff done. Get it done faster, get it done cheaper, get it done better, get it done right the first time. That's all we're doing is getting stuff done. So when I get ready to promote somebody, typically most organizations, there's so much excitement and research about sort of changing sort of the sort of pyramid structure that we think about in typical business. We tend to think in business, okay, there's a pyramid, right? And at the bottom of the pyramid, it's fatter. And so there's like more people there doing stuff. And then as you go up the pyramid, there are, you know, less and less people. That's why it's getting skinnier. And those people are, you know, higher and higher levels of people in charge of getting stuff done. And so there are less and less of them. And there are different levels of managers and supervisors. And at some level, the managers become what they call executives often. And then at the top of the pyramid, you usually have some sort of top leader. It might be a general if you're in some sort of military unit. It might be a chief executive officer. You know, it doesn't matter what their title is, but there's usually somebody who, if the whole thing, you know, if something really bad happens, they're the one that their name is at the top. They're usually paid the most or one of the highest amounts of pay and benefits, and they're the one that's responsible. So if things fall apart, then they're the one that's got to, you know, go to the media or testify to the government or whatever. Like, you were in charge. What happened, right? So from that one person, typically, then, you know, as we said, that's tippy top of our pyramid. And then we go down, and it gets fatter and fatter, right? So we have different layers of people, you know, directly underneath that one person, and then we get a little bit bigger. And depending on how large your organization is, you know, you're still sort of adhering to this pyramid. Even little companies tend to do this. Like little tiny micro businesses tend to do this, right? There might be one person. There might only be like two other people in the whole organization. They're at the bottom of the pyramid, but that's larger. And then they also usually have vendors and other, services that they purchase. So the whole idea is that the pyramid, there's a lot of discussion, there's some experimentation in different sectors around the world of sort of flattened hierarchies where there are no bosses, where there's nobody at the top, where everybody's a manager. And all that is incredibly interesting. And I'm going to do different programs on that in the future, and we'll see how it works out. Typically, the intersection of this that fascinates me is, of course, I love business, right? So I teach it. I'm an entrepreneur, so I've been out running little businesses. And I'm a lawyer, so of course I love seeing how the framework of legal systems and government impacts businesses. And then I went, my most recent master's of science, I put together an interdisciplinary program, and a lot of it was focused on psychology. And the reason was because when you look at humans and trying to get stuff done, a lot of the obstacles that sort of slow things up or make things not get done have nothing to do at all with law or business or anything else. I mean, it's all just some sort of emotional, psychological, human, aspect, and that's what's sort of gunking up the system a lot. Or in another light, you could say that's what makes the system so beautiful and so diverse and fabulously interesting, and it's true. So why do people do what they do, right? Because we're getting to why do we promote them. All right. I've given over the years, and I'm going to stick to this for the time being because I like simple, bright lines to begin with. And then within that, you can start to grow nuance and finesse things. But people need big picture framework, in my personal estimation and what I've done for so many years, so that they get the big picture, and then you can start to build on top of that. The big picture, why people do what they do, right? Did they come to work on time? We're trying to always follow the email. Did they read the client feedback? Did they get it done right the first time? Why do people do what they do, right? Was it exceptional? Was it sort of average? Or was it a disaster? It was late. It was disorganized. It was the wrong information. What happened? People have two reasons, why they behave. One, because they want to, and two, because they're allowed to. So any question anybody ever asks me in my corporate training or consulting practice, and why were these people late? Why was my team member drunk? Why did somebody yell at a customer? Why did they steal from coworkers' purses? Why did they send in a misspelled contract to a client? Okay, everything you ask me, the answer is going to be because they wanted to and they were allowed to. The first part of the equation, the wanting to, is there's so much to that, right? That's their drive, their life experience, their own sort of psychological profile and makeup, why they want what they want. That's interesting. But the second part that we focus on so much in my practice on the ground is what they're allowed to do, right? So management magicians understand that I can't necessarily control what people want. That's a very deep-seated, lifelong issue. But you can have massive impact on what people are allowed to do. When we're getting ready to promote someone, and we talked about that pyramid, right? So we're back to this idea of this sort of the hierarchy, right? Little tippy top, usually one person has the highest title, and then there's, larger and larger groups of people as you go down the pyramid that have responsibility for tinier and tinier percentages of the overall organization. And so that's where we're promoting somebody. If we're in one of these new groups where we don't have any bosses, where there's no hierarchy, where there are no titles, then you don't have promotion. So we don't need to talk about that. But when we're on this sort of historical pyramid of power, then we promote somebody because we're trying to take the people who are able to get stuff done for themselves and can marshal resources, right, which is other people, contractors, internal staff, and supplies, budgetary constraints, and get stuff done, so for themselves and for other resources. I'm only going to promote somebody who's able to get stuff done for themselves and can get stuff done marshaling resources with other people. Now, the challenge is this. When you move up that little pyramid, right, so we're in our traditional business, so I'm moving up my little pyramid of power. So I started off, I was just, I'm an entry-level worker. I have zero responsibility for anybody else other than myself. My only requirement is to show up when they tell me, sit where they tell me, do what they tell me, wear my uniform or whatever, and go home when they tell me. As I promote up the ladder, up the pyramid of power, then I'm not just responsible for getting myself here at a certain time with my uniform and doing whatever, but I'm also responsible for whoever it is that they tell me I'm supposed to be supervising or managing, right? So not just me getting here on time with my uniform on and getting the task done, but I also have to make these other people get here, get it done with their uniforms on. So it's exponentially more work, right? The skill sets that permit somebody to take care of themselves exceptionally well, right? That person's early and on time, they're, ready to go, they've read through all the material, the work is right the first time. That skill set is totally separate from the skill set of somebody who has the ability to marshal themselves and other people and resources. Those are two totally different skills. Totally. And this is where people fail to understand the magic in promotions. I'm trying to promote people who can marshal themselves and others. That is totally separate from somebody who can just marshal themselves. And what tends to happen with people who have not strengthened their management magician skills, you're told that you need to promote somebody, right? Usually from somebody higher up. Hey, it looks like we're going to need to have another assistant manager. We need you to come back to us if you have any internal, recommendations or anybody that you'd like to, think that we should consider internally, in the hiring process. Okay, great. What a lot of managers who are not focused on being exceptional, right? What they'll do is they'll sort of look around and think, okay, well, who's the one that I have the least, quote, problem with or trouble or challenge? You can label it with whatever euphemism you want. But basically, if you're a manager, the people that you feel the kind of the warmth the most about are the ones who bring you the least amount of headache, right? Because when you're managing, you have to do all your stuff, and you also have to control and try to get other people to do stuff. And the ones that you tend to feel fondly about are the ones who don't bring you any hassle. Meaning, hey, team, we're going to get out there, we're going to do these things. And then hey, you've got, 10 people, and, 3 of them you never hear from. They're told what we're working on, they go out and they do it. There's never any complaints from a client or a coworker. Every time, you're making an observation and in your work environment, there they are working like you're supposed to, where they're supposed to. Their work is right the first time. They're timely. They don't have any personality conflicts. There's never anything that comes to your attention, about these people. And for a manager's perspective, that's kind of the ideal. That's what you want, right? Because every day you have all your own stuff you have to get done. You have to get yourself right to work, right? So you're still always handling that same sort of personal burden. I got to get all my stuff handled, which also, that's why we focus on our joyful art of business, tied to your regular life, right? Everybody's got their own plate, just in life that's full of other stuff. Did I deal with traffic? Did I deal with my family today? What about my pet turtle? Oh, no, my elderly, great-grandmother's ill. I mean, everybody's got all that, too. So the manager tends to look around and sort of make decisions broadly and generically thinking, look, who do I never seem to have a problem with? Those people are apparently getting it done, right? So why don't I just go ahead and promote one of them? And in fact, I could probably look and see who has the highest level of efficiency and the least amount of problems in terms of, personality conflict. They couldn't get along with the coworker. We had to go to HR and have some sort of counseling session, all this kind of stuff. What the problem and the fatal flaw in this is misunderstanding what your task is. The majority of people who are not managers and supervisors do not want to be managers and supervisors. I'm going to repeat it. The majority of people who are not currently managers and supervisors, they do not want to be managers and supervisors. And the main reason is because of all this extra responsibility. In addition to their own life, right? Poor elderly great-grandmother, my pet cat, oh goodness, my personal relationship with the person I care about is not going well. Oh no, I hurt my toe, my stomach hurts, traffic's horrible. They have to deal with all of that. And then you want to ask them if they want to add on top of that plate, dealing with other people. And here's one of the main issues. Somebody who's been in a unit, because they've been in an environment working with other people, they're doing really well from the manager's perspective and everybody else's perspective, right? No problems, high performer, get along with people, awesome. The challenge is that they're getting along with people, right? So they've worked out their own sort of social dynamics and office politics. They've got their own peer relationships. Things are stable for them. It's working. And when you go and promote those people from being a peer to a supervisor, it's going to shatter all that work that they've invested in building sort of these social networks. And they're going to have to start all over again, right, to build new networks. And they're going to lose, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. That a lot of the people that they have that are peer friends, that they really are, social with and have invested in relationships with, they're going to lose those because the moment they become their supervisor, then you're not able to be their buddy and hang out with them and gossip about how horrible the manager is and all the other fun stuff they do when they hang out after work. So you're asking somebody to take on a ton of extra responsibility. You're asking them to shatter personal friendships and relationships that they may permanently lose. Because, it's so common. You see this all the time, right? So you take somebody, we have somebody who's in a management position. They're not a management magician. They take the lazy way to promote somebody, forgetting what the goal is. The goal is to get stuff done, right, and to understand what the skill is. The skill in a manager is your own self-discipline, and you can marshal resources. But you're also looking for somebody who's willing to step up to the plate and accept this. Every time that we're looking at that sort of two-pronged analysis of why people do what they do, right? Why were they late? Why were they rude to a coworker? Why were they mean to a customer, right? I said it's because they want to and because they're allowed to. I mentioned that you cannot, to the best of my ability at this point, figure out how to totally control what they want. That's internal to them. You can, though, create conditions that will provide consequences to what they're allowed to do. So you can change their behavior. It's conditioning, obviously, right? Classical conditioning. So I can change their behavior by changing what they're allowed to do. Here's the deal, though. Every time you do that, right? So you say to people, hey, you need to be here at the office in your, work area at, 8:30 a.m. And then they're late. The only way to change the behavior is to give them a consequence to stop them from being allowed to be late, right? So you write them up, you give them a verbal warning, whatever your rules are. Every time you implement the consequence to change them from doing what they want to do, they don't like you. I mean, I've gone hoarse trying in all these years, and I'm going to put together some more programs about this because there's so many aspects of it. Leaders are not liked, they're respected. Leaders are not liked. Why aren't they liked? Because every time you tell somebody no, they don't like you. Every single time. I don't care how nicely you say it. I don't care if you say it with, sugar and spice all around it. Hi. Hey, I saw that you were, logged in and working by 8:40, and that was awesome. Yet, we need to all remember we need to be in by 8:30. Is that okay? Or can I get your agreement on that? I don't care how you do it. The core line is no. No, you can't do what you want to do. You can't come when you want. You have to come when we want. Every time you tell somebody no matter how nicely you do it, they don't like you at some level. They just don't like it because they were doing what they wanted. And now you're trying to tell them they can't. So they're not going to like you. Now, it's not permanent that they despise you for all time, but they don't like you in that moment. And here's where this whole thing falls apart of promoting your best performer. Most people who, again, are the best performer have created all these great social relationships, and they handle the office politics with their peer group perfectly. That's why they don't have any problems. You're not having issues with them, not getting along with people. And so when you want to make them promoted to a supervisor position, which will require them to tell people no, the people who they've been hanging out with, right, then those people don't like them. And in addition to the fact they've lost friendships, now they're triggering all these negative consequences. And who's responsible for it? You are, the manager who's not a magician and promoted the wrong person. So we'll do other programs. Who do you promote? You promote the people who have the total skills. They get themselves there, and they get everything done themselves, and they also have the desire, and this is the most important part, not the ability, but the desire to want to come into this area, into this job, and understand that people are going to not like them, and that they're going to be in a situation where they're going to have social ramifications. And that is often somebody from outside the unit or outside that division or who works on a different site, because that way they don't have to blow up all their own relationships that they built. And they've made a change, and they're coming into sort of a new area. There are some people, though, in a department who really want to be manager. But if you've been doing your job and using your informal review process and your formal review process, they'll have the assertiveness to have told you from the beginning, look, my goal is to move up the ladder. My goal is to be exceptional where I am, and I want to be promoted. And they're going to have to be explicit with you. Okay? But if they've never said anything like that, don't make this assumption that they want it, because they usually don't. And usually the price that they have to pay is too high, and they fail to be successful. So thank you so much for joining us. Always come to CourtneyAnderson.com and join in our community, and have a great rest of your day.